I have arrived at my new location, and this is the next leg on my digital nomad tripping. I keep changing the name, but one thing is consistent: it's digital, it's nomadic. So I'm moving from place to place, and I am just doing life, otherwise called life in. Now, I have been toying with this particular topic and wanted to make this video for a while, at least since I decided to fulfill my challenge of making a video a day. And as you have seen, hopefully, I've been doing very good. Some days we have even 3 videos a day. So yeah, and I'm hoping I can show you. Can I show you? Are you able to see it? I'm sitting outside by the fire. So I traded the warmth of Cancun and Playa and Puerto Morelos, Mexico. And of course, you have not seen the earlier trips to Santo Domingo. But yeah, I have traded the sunshine and the beach and the heat for the cool, cool hills of West Virginia. And my goodness, it is another kind of experience. One that I appreciate. I love the country. And I love fall foliage. Oh, I wonder if I can turn it around a little bit. And the trees are changing color. Look how beautiful. How lovely. Yeah. So I could almost say this is my fall space, because we've done this pretty much the same stay in the same place this time last year. Yeah, trying to get the angle. And I will now have a selfie stick of sorts very soon, so I won't have to hold the phone so close to my face. But yes, it's a work in progress. So the heavy topic, it's heavy. The heavy topic today, let me see if we can fix this a little bit. It's a little nippy, but the sun came out, so I'm enjoying it. Today, I want us to speak about suicide. And yes, I gave that big sigh because it's a big topic. And to be frank, the topic why I failed at suicide is apt, because had I not failed, we would not be having this conversation, now would we? So I'm trying to make light of a very serious situation. And for those who follow statistics, it is one of those situations that when there is a successful attempt, the typical survivors, those who are left behind, let's call them the loved ones, many times they will say they saw no signs, or they didn't know, or they might even have heard the victim say, I'm gonna do this. I think I want to unlive myself. And many people just think it's talk. So here I am, a survivor of suicide attempts, and knowing that it is a very serious situation. Why did I attempt suicide on several occasions? I'm about to say numerous, because yeah, it has had its ugly thorns dug into me for many years. And it started when I was a little girl. It started when I was about 10. And as I am going through and doing reflections, I think it being a demonic attack, I'm going to call it what it is, began round about the same time when my father began his molestation exploits of me. And I put it like that because you want to put things into perspective. It's a transfer of spirits. And if I were to switch and speak about my father for a minute, I learned much, much later in life that this man had suicidal tendencies. And ultimately, leading up to his passing, he proudly told everyone that he was trying to drink himself to death. He was an alcoholic, and for at least 2 years, the last 2 years of his life, he refused to eat and he just consumed copious amounts of alcohol, which ultimately, did all the internal damage and made sure that he was granted his wish. And please, no one needs to think that I'm taking this lightly. I might chuckle a little bit and snicker, but maybe it's just the coping mechanism as I reflect, on this hideous path that many people take and are not even aware that there's another way and there's light at the end of the tunnel, and things will not always be the way they currently are. But an attempt at suicide, for starters, at least from my perspective, is a cry for help. And we need to take it seriously. It doesn't matter how young, how old, how happy or how sad the individual is or seem to be. Just them uttering those words should automatically raise all the flags that indicate there is a cry for help. There's a cry for attention. There's a cry for change. There's a cry for love. There's a cry for reassurance. And you might have to do it again and again and over. And you, the person who is being made aware that this is the stage and the situation that this individual finds themselves in, please be patient. Please understand that this is not a place that you willingly go to. It is something that is bigger than you. It's something that impacts your mental state. It's something that has caused, in my case, me to feel hopeless, that nothing better was going to happen, that I had hit rock bottom and there was no future. When I looked ahead, I saw darkness. I never saw a future. When I looked behind, I saw a past where I was constantly being called names. Oh, at school I was bullied. I was made names of because of my weight, because of my height, because of the fact that I wore glasses. And it didn't even bother anyone that I had limited control over a lot of things that were not perfect in my life. So, for example, my weight came on from a little girl I was born. Chunky. My father was a very big, trapped in man, and my mother was someone who wore her weight way out there loud. And so inheriting it was just a logical thing. And even though I wanted to be active, as a little girl, I discovered that when I ran or did certain activities, the bones in my knees would literally separate and I would fall. So the cartilage basically was non-existent. And as I grew and had different specialists do their checks, I later was told that I don't even have the patella in my knees. So there was a problem, and There was not a big push by my parents to fix it. And back then, I don't know. It's sometimes hard to speak on what went on in their heads, but based on what I suspect, my mother was caught up in her own drama and my father was living his life. He was one of these charismatic type men who had a thing for the ladies, and so he was busy, yeah, chasing many skirts and getting his life going the way he probably thought he wanted it. So can you imagine? Here I was, a little girl, crying out for love, crying out for attention, crying out for affection. And I must say this, and it was something that was said many, many times. If you are not hungry, if you're not sick, if you get to go to school and you have your books and your bags, you're fine. What's the problem? Why are you belly aching? Why are you griping? Why are you fussing? If you lived in a house that had a good roof on, and back in the 70s, 80s, if you had a TV and a refrigerator, you were better than most. So why be sad? Why even think that your life was bad? And so those were the situations that faced me. But this attack became more and more severe the older I got, and it followed me all the way into my teens. I must say though that I discovered that for the year that I lived in Spain, I lived with a family from Catalonia, and I don't think they singled me out for love and attention and affection. What they did instead was made me a part of the family, and they were just wonderful people, but they were thoughtful and they were kind. And even though in the beginning I did not speak the language, I didn't understand what they were saying, they made it very clear that they cared. And this was the best year of my life, and I am almost sure that maybe after the first time when I just kind of walked away to the sea and they couldn't find me for a few hours and they were in panic mode, I never entertained the spirit of suicide, not for that year. And it was blissful, it was wonderful. But when I got back home, when I got back to my own people who were cold and cruel and their words stung, it was hard. Criticism was so constant. Everything had a critique. If it was good, it could be better. If it was great, it had to be excellent. And so there was just no winning. There was no winning. There were days I felt that I would be strong and power past it. And there were other days when I just needed to give in. But the one occasion where I almost succeeded, the memory of it still terrifies me to this day. And the one thing I can say about it was the way the plan, which was a carefully laid out plan, was taught. And I think I made some decisions based on what happened that night into my future, because there appeared out of nowhere a young man, a musician, and he basically took me away from the area where I was intending to create harm and took me back to where I would, I can just say where I lived, where I was safe. But that wasn't the powerful part. The powerful part was he led me inside, because I was planning to just go back out and complete the process. But he led me inside, walked through the main door, led me into my room, closed the door, and for the entire night, for as long as that night had darkness, I could not open the door. To this day, it baffles me. The following morning, I woke up lying at the door where I had spent the night trying to yank it open, pull it open, break it open, and it wouldn't budge. And when I woke up that morning, just a gentle touch of the knob and the door swung open. That was when I realized that was divine providence, that was protection. I hurriedly went out and I found this musician. We were at a hotel. I was working and living on the property in the capacity that I occupied, and they were the band that had played that night, and they would stay over and then leave after breakfast. I found him. I walked up to him and I said to him, "What was that thing that you did last night?" And he's like, "What?" I said, "What? Why did you take me to my room? What did you do? How did you lock my door? How is it that when I woke up in the morning, the door that was locked was suddenly open? Did you do something? Did you have a special key? Do you have a key to my room?" And he looked at me totally puzzled. And as I continued to describe, without giving away my intentions, I said to him, "You are joking with me. You need to tell me, what did you do?" His confusion became evident, and he said he had no idea what I was talking about. He wasn't feeling well that night, and he had gone to his room and he went to sleep. There was no time in his recollection that he had been outside. He did not see me that night. He did not speak to me that night. He did not interact with me at all. And I could stop here and I could say that that was how my suicide plan failed. Why did it fail? Because I had divine protection. I had the hand of the Lord upon me. At that time, I was not even age 25. I think I was probably closer to 22. But I was so heartened by the fact that the Lord had selected me to save me that I became curious as to what type of life He had in store for me. But to be frank with you all, it would have been nice to say that everything became peachy and roses from there onwards. But that was not the case at all. I had many more battles to fight. I had uphill journeys that took me absolutely nowhere, it seemed. And many times, especially throughout all of the trials of my work life, the relationship that I found myself in, having chosen a musician, maybe out of gratitude to this, the musician memory that had saved my life, they were all laced with conflict, distress, disappointment. I had happiness, happy days sprinkled in between, but there were so many sad moments, so many hurtful, painful words were spewed at me. But here I am now. I had no plans to be alive to see a life beyond age 50. I had no thought that I could have lived a life that would have impacted lives. I had no thought that I would even be a parent, because that was one of my biggest fears. Having been so brutally hurt by my parents, early I learned that hurting people hurt people. And I refused to give birth to another human being and hurt that person the way I was hurt. But here we are. I have weathered many storms. I have come out, I'd like to say like pure gold, but I don't really feel golden. But the power is in speaking the things that are not as though they were. Well, at least I'm in my golden years, so that is a plus. But yeah, if I were to leave with a word of encouragement for someone who thinks that there's no way out and let me just end my life. There's so many thoughts, but one of the things that I would want to say is there is actually life after suicide attempt. There is life for the living. If there are shackles and bondages that people put on you, and sometimes you're so weakened, but you need to believe in yourself. Just believe that you're special. It's good to say you're special to many people, but let's start with saying you're special to the one who created you, and then you are special to yourself. Learn to not expect love from others. Instead, give love to yourself. Don't hate yourself anymore. Stop self-hating and stop self-hurting. Just stop. My challenge to you is give yourself 21 days of love. Give yourself 21 days of respect. Give yourself 21 days of speaking kindly to yourself. See how that works. And if it doesn't work the way you're expecting, give yourself another 21 days. Because surely at the end of it, you will see yourself a little bit better every single day. There's so many other thoughts that I want to share, but at this point I will leave it there. I really hope that this message reaches the heart and the mind, the soul of someone who really needs to hear it. Every time I hear of a successful suicide attempt, my stomach churns, my heart hurts, and I wish I were there to speak positiveness into that life. I grieve when I think of the persons I've known, and I think of this one young boy who was my student, and I shan't get into that story right now, but it hurts my heart because he hinted without hinting. And it's not that I was too busy. I had a trip planned and I was leaving the following day, and I was gone for 3 weeks, and when I got back, I heard it. It was said that just a Friday, I got back Monday, Friday before I got back. He thought it was too much. And his suicide attempt, it didn't fail. It did not fail. And they had to bury him. I know this is a solemn, Sherry says, but as I have shared before, Sherry has lots to say. And I hope that this has touched the mind and the heart and the life of someone. And that you would do better for yourself, to yourself. Yeah, I'll leave it here until the next video. Ciao for now.